Hello, Jen.
Hi, we're live on LinkedIn. Hopefully, we've got people joining us. Tell us where it's
Excellent.
from. That would be amazing. We'll see. So, Jonathan, I'm so glad you're joining me.
Thank you for having.
Yeah.
Whenever do we get the chance to talk?
Well, we talk pretty regularly, but and I kind of on the event kind of made fun of that. The idea that there was a time where you could pretty much expect a Saturday morning phone call while I was going on my walk, almost like every Saturday there for a little while.
Very good.
I appreciate. So, oh, and look, we've got some people. Louisville, Kentucky.
Great.
Both of you know that. Well, okay. Catherine's joining us. So we've got some people. Thank you so much for joining us. I love it when people join live. I love the replay too, but live is nice. So if anyone has any questions about networking networks that they want to send our way, please do so, because we're gonna dive into this conversation. Oh, Hamid says hi, Jen Ferguson. But it's nice to see everybody. So Jonathan, why don't you tell everyone about yourself? Because not everyone may know you as well as I do.
Sure. So I do consulting and advisory work with the early stage SaaS startups. I've been doing that for the last couple of years after about a decade with early stage SaaS companies in sales and sales leadership roles, and doing a little bit of networking on top of that. Always trying to figure out better ways, but that's what brought us together today.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. We met at the beginning of, I think it was the beginning, right? Sort of
March, April, yeah.
Yeah, early in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And with the rise of the sales communities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to me, not everyone joins those sales communities and gets as much out of it as other people.
Right.
So share with me, what have you gotten out of it, and how we met, or whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of them have popped up in the last couple of years, but I think with COVID, the move to digital has caused an accelerator on these networks and communities. And I think they all come in different flavors. They all have different purposes, and important to know and understand that, so that you can find the right ones for you, and/or how to use and allot time for those the best. But we met at a little place called Rev Genius, and what was great, what's great about that community and network is a lot of opportunity to directly talk and connect to individuals. And that's one of the biggest things that I got out of that, and that's where we connected up and haven't stopped talking since.
Yeah. So I think when people join communities, a lot of folks just stay sort of that surface level and don't really go deeper. And I found that the way I got the most value out of it, and I would say all communities, not just like Rev Genius, but like I'm in the NAWSP, I'm in Girls Club, just in a lot of different places. But I find that actually having like the Zoom calls, those face-to-face conversations, or even a phone call if you're like zoomed out for the day, is real. And picking up the phone and having a phone call to really get to know someone has been sort of a game changer for me, especially during the pandemic. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you can. There's places that will have dialogue through email or posts on a website, like Reddit style, where you can just look at, review topics, get your knowledge up on something. That's one level of engagement. You can kind of see who's involved in the community, and get note of different people and get an understanding of the lay of the land. That's another. But ultimately, to your point, the more that you can get into them and make connections with people, whether you're looking to do business there or network to grow your interactions with other people, if you don't engage, and whether you have the options to connect there or, like you said, through phone or Zoom or something else, you're going to be missing out on something. And or if you're not finding those opportunities, maybe it's not the right community for you. Maybe it's not in your industry. Maybe it's not in your technology space. Maybe it's not going to have the mark, so it's not worth you spending as much time. And I think that goes from Patreons all the way up through LinkedIn.
No, and I would agree with that. There was a time where I was part of a couple of Patreon groups, and I decided that I wasn't getting as much value out of it as I was like some of the other relationships I had created through communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot of people know this, but Jonathan and I actually are part of a coffee crew, right?
Yep.
In one small micro community. And, going through my job hunt, part of that was, I got to share with a group of people like every morning over coffee, how things were going, but also to gain feedback and insights and how to be better and how to do better. And just share everyone's unique perceptions, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah, and the creation of that came out of the need to have that kind of space, because we don't have the office water cooler anymore to gather around, or local groups that we can sit down with once a week or once a month or whatever. So to have that kind of conversational space just wasn't parts of other networks. Now you've joined Clubhouse, which seems to be the new hip space to have deeper conversations. But you've also described it as a podcast you can talk back to.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I love Clubhouse. I do when I have time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like any social media tool, how you manage your time and where you're going to invest your time that actually brings value to you is super important.
Right.
So with Clubhouse, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and like every morning I would listen to podcasts. Every morning. And I find that I will typically disagree with someone on the podcast, whether it's the guest, the host, whoever. Generally, there's someone that I just don't agree with. And so what do? I'm out there for a walk and I look like I'm talking to myself as I disagree with this person. Well, with Clubhouse, I have the ability to hit the button and say, hey, I want to share, and I can disagree with that person verbally. And get some more insights or why they think that way, and understand why, whatever it is they're bringing to the table is being said. And I think that brings a lot of value, as well as the ability to have these group conversations that you don't necessarily need to, refresh your lipstick for.
Right. No, it sounds interesting. And I think, I'll have to find the right invite at some point and the right hours per day, week to make it happen. I've been kind of hesitant because it seems like another potential hole that I could find myself in for hours a day that I didn't want to jump right into. So,
man, you're killing me, because there's people everywhere in the world looking for an invite to Clubhouse. Yet I've given you one, right?
It's top of inbox.
Yeah.
I'll get it this week.
The irony there, right?
Yeah.
So there was a question from Catherine here.
Mm-hmm.
It says there are 87 plus communities. How do you personally evaluate where and how to be active? That's a really good question. Do you want to take that first?
If it's Clubhouse specific, I would leave that to you. But I'm in a handful of different sales networks, and to me, it's trying to understand what's the purpose of the community or channel. How do I best align to it, and what can I give to that community, and what can I get back? Like, so how do you create real value relationships within them? So I try to look at those high level things, and I think very quickly, a couple months to a quarter. You can kind of figure out what's happening and how that's working, and just try to find that balance. I mean, you can't do all the communities in one group, or all the participatory options in something like, you could spend 24 hours on LinkedIn. That's not necessarily going to help you. So I think it's, like most other things, there's a lot of testing involved. A lot of attempts on your end to figure out the best ways that you can engage. understand the types of people that are in there. And, whether it's, for pure business, like you're just in there really trying to engage a group of potential buyers and sell with them, or it's more of a support and growth type of group, I think within a few months, you should be able to understand that kind of give and get. I would highly recommend not spending all day on any one to test it out, but, start with a few hours here and there, and see where it goes. But if it's not working for you, like, feel fine walking away or reducing your time.
Yeah, I mean, I find that if I focus on where I can add value to others while still engaging with people that I find interesting, that I actually want to meet,
hmm
and taking it offline sooner rather than later. Like, it doesn't, like, taking it out of the community and saying, hey, let's just schedule a Zoom and do it that way,
hmm
so that I know pretty quickly this is someone that I really want to have as a friend, be in my network, someone I can, where we're aligned in what we believe and what we want, and so on. Or do they bring something else to the table for me, like
Right.
diversity of thought? Are they different than me?
hmm
And that perspective. So I think that's all really important. For
Totally.
me, I've left a lot of communities
hmm
since the pandemic started. And so the criteria that
And
I
started
use to
them too.
measure, yeah, well, no, and I've joined them too. Yeah. So the criteria I use to measure is whether they align with my values,
hmm
whether they have diversity of thought, whether they are open to being innovative and bringing new things to the table, and then what I get and give out of it, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, and also
there,
just to jump in and interrupt and not mansplain, but
yeah.
I think an important point is, did a little bit of work with a gentleman, Mark Birch, who created Enterprise Sales Forum and wrote a book called Community in a Box, which is a great read on how to start these communities, a little more in the physical world, but also covers digital. But in there he calls out and puts a lot of focus on, like, what for the founders, what's your intention in creating this community? What's the community's mission and set of goals, and how can that be a collective good for everybody? And
Mhm.
then how do you start and grow that over time? And sometimes the mission of the shared community might not align with you. It might only be good for a couple of things. So taking people offline, it might inspire the creation of something else where you can be more focused on things that are aligned to the things that you're trying to get more out of networking with the world. So no one community is going to perfectly align with exactly what it is you're looking for. Like, LinkedIn's great for a lot of things in terms of finding people and sharing, to try to, like, begin and create a conversation there. It's not really
Mhm.
the best platform. LinkedIn Live has become a great new addition where you can share these types of conversations with a group. But I would imagine.
Ooh, Jonathan, you froze for me. I don't know if you froze for our audience here. Okay, well, we're just going to roll with it here. So, Vivek, I had a question.
Mhm.
Says, "Hi, Jen and Jonathan. I just about joined Rev Genius. What would you recommend I should do to get a deeper and understand the group?" I think that's an interesting question, and Catherine did respond here. So she says, join some roundtables, focus on the handful of channels that seem most interesting to you versus being active on all 50 channels. I 100% agree with Catherine there. I also loved the roundtables. I sort of, that opportunity to meet a group of people in one time slot, I thought was really clever,
Yeah.
about Rev Genius. What do
Yeah.
you think?
I agree with all that. The other thing I would do is, the introduction channel is a great place to just see people coming on, and
Mhm.
they usually share a little bit about themselves and their background. So it's an opportunity to identify folks, and the platform allows direct messaging. So it's an opportunity to try to connect directly with people and create those conversations. So in addition to finding the subject areas, engaging roundtables, I would um, look to those opportunities to connect. And now they've done a lot to build up the content that they put out. So check out their content and dig in where you think appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, some other sales communities out there like Sales Hacker, Bravado, Revenue Collective,
Hmm.
there, Modern Sales Pros. I mean, there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah.
So I think with all communities, though, just like anything in life, what you put into it is
Hmm.
what you get out of it, right?
Right.
You listen to podcasts, it's the adoption of whatever it is you learn.
Hmm.
So it's what you put into it that you're going to get. Just like, I mean, I think that's a pretty consistent. So if you do want to dedicate some time to it, just know that you have to give to get, right? And
Totally. And
that's the way it goes.
so I do a lot of the viewing of events on Sales Hacker. I do a little more participation in Modern Sales Pros, um, just for how it's been working out for me recently. And two different communities, two different, slightly different focuses, but able to get good content, able to make good connections in both, and I've kind of found the right balance for how I engage in those. And any community, especially with a lot of interactions and content, can get overwhelming really quickly, and that's why I think the balance is most important. And if you can find the right community fit and find the right engagement level, I think that provides you the best opportunities to get the knowledge and the new friends that you can meet through them.
Exactly. I think we met. You had wanted to join the DE&I initiative, and at the
Mhm.
time, I was leading it. So
It's
I
funny.
was
I
lucky.
I ended up in the DE&I group at Modern Sales Pros. So found a way to get into the conversation and try to be a positive source to it, but just didn't happen there. But I met you
Yeah.
there, so
Yeah. So I mean, it is all what you take from it. I met a lot of really amazing people over at Rev Genius. I've also met a lot of amazing people in the comments on LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
So this is about networking networks, right? And so it's amazing the amount of people that I will start interacting with on comments that we realize, you know what, we have a lot in common. Let's just go, schedule a call to chat and network. And that's where
Well,
you start developing those relationships.
and I think we've been leaning more on the friend and community support side. But
Mhm.
before we jumped on, we were talking about leveraging social networks for selling. And I think anyone would agree that with all the noise out there, it's really harder to generate marketing leads, to directly go outreach to somebody and sell, or a lot more challenging than it was a decade ago. Who picks up their phone anymore? How many emails a day are people getting? How many posts are going out on LinkedIn? So this type of engagement on these platforms to make connections that you can at least cut through the noise and talk about the business that you'd like to talk about is just as important as building up your business social community as well. And it's just going to increase your amount of opportunities for leads you can generate and deals you can close.
No, and I agree with that. I was, it's funny when I announced that I recently got a new job, right? And so the amount of DMs that I got from people that it, didn't necessarily occur to me that I was going to be able to do business with, right?
Mhm.
That said, hey, I want to know more about that. And it's just because I have been doing that network and I've genuinely been showing interest in others and
Yes.
where I could add value to their lives,
Hmm.
right? Not even from a business perspective, just
Hmm.
like how can I help? That when I made that change and I said it, everyone was like, wait a second, what do you do? Let's talk about that. When are you gonna get settled so we can talk about what it is you do and whether I could help at all.
Right.
And so you don't get that by connecting with someone and sending a random DM.
Hmm.
Get that by having a conversation and engaging someone and genuinely caring.
Yeah. Providing value is the
Yeah.
only way that you're going to be able to get value back. And super point, so when I suggest that you want to connect with people to potentially do business, it's not the send an invite to connect and then with the next message, buy my stuff. It is making that connection, having the conversation. But you've been putting in the bank. 2020 was a big year for you in terms of putting out more content, making more connections. Creating this value cachet that now you didn't even start to go out to be like, hey, I think you might be interested in this. You just started, and it was like, there's a dozen things in your inbox like, this looks interesting, I want to talk about it. And that's how you get value from a community.
That's it exactly. So I've got Eileen here, that agree with you, because not everyone works in industries where they can post on here, but can listen in on it. And I agree with that. That's why actually, maybe it's not the posting. Maybe it's interacting with people in the comments. Maybe it's reaching out via DM with something thoughtful about something they commented on and adding depth and adding more value in that way. I think even if you're working in an industry where you can't be as visible, I think it's super important that you think about what you can do to sort of stand out from the crowd, because everywhere's crowded, right? Everyone's more online than ever.
Right.
I think that matters. Did you have any suggestions, Jonathan?
Well, I think, making the connection is important. The other thing that's, I think going to be important this decade is the kind of transition to demand generation versus marketing leads. And so, content is going to be important, figuring out where it belongs. Like if your industry isn't on LinkedIn, it might not be LinkedIn, but how do you get people interested in your organization and bring them in? And whether you're finding them through communities, making the connection, starting the conversation, or they're finding your content, video content, posts, whatever, and coming in and starting that conversation. You're still trying to get to the goal of that conversation. And I think the two vehicles can be micro communities and demand gen content.
Yeah, you have to figure out where your target audience is. If your goal is really to sell people with this time investment, because it is investment in time, right? And you have to be smart about it. If your goal is actually to connect with people who are going to be your target buyers, you have to figure out where those people are, where you're going to invest your time more most wisely, and how to do it in a way that lets you stand out from the pack, right? And so I think that's something that I've just learned. We do have a question here, or a comment from Chris Bowen. So I suggest setting some limit to how much time you want to spend on it per week. I definitely agree with that. To stay within the limit, because it's easy to track how much effort you're actually spending. And I agree with that. I personally turn off all my notifications, right, on my phone, so that that never becomes a distraction. And I only go to those places when I'm intentional about going there, because it can become a distraction. You don't want to be like led down this merry way of social media and like never get any work done. That's not helpful.
Yeah, well, it will suck time out of your ability to create value. If you're, just kind of reading, following, checking, chatting, you got to find those other opportunities. On the business side too, I think it's just as important, because there's these micro communities all the way up through LinkedIn. There's business goals of try to engage that, and there's your personal goals. I think, for the business side too, is figuring out how you can find the right places, but also scale. Like, just because there's 12 more places that you can engage, converse, post, share, try to connect, doesn't mean you can't figure out ways to scale that. So, to Chris's point, figure out how to manage that time, but also, what are your opportunities for scaling across these things?
Yeah. And thank you, Chris, for sharing that point, because that was a really excellent point to make. And I forgot to say thank you for adding value. So, and Cortland here says to Vivek, that it can definitely get overwhelming. Jump in slowly and join roundtables. Yeah, that's similar to what we were saying. I found in Rev Genius that it was most helpful to only follow the channels that I was actually interested in. And that cut down on all the noise. Because, people could always call me to those other spaces if there was something that was relevant to me that they wanted me to see, but I generally just stuck to my couple spots.
Right. But even, you like LinkedIn, how to keep up with all the posts, Sales Hacker and Modern Sales Pros, like topics can fly by your inbox or on the post sheet at dozens per day. So it is about navigating, your time and your topics and your people effectively.
Yeah. And you have to think, okay, so if you're using it to engage your target market, right? So that is part of your job. How many activities is the right number of activities to engage with? Posts of your prospects,
right?
Posts of your, like, how are you leveraging the tool so that you're not spending a lot of time going down a rabbit hole, but actually being strategic about the time that you spend there.
And also, if you can understand how to connect it to the results that you're looking for, right? So, the lead gen to demand gen is the theory, and I think the reality is it's supposed to net out in higher quality things like closed business instead of intro meeting set. So if you're spending 8 hours a week on LinkedIn for yourself and your business, but you're netting out 5-10 new high quality connections a week that are important to your network and your business's network, and 2-3 months down the road, that's leading to closed business or new opportunities or new introductions, that 8 hours might be worth it. If you're not getting those types of results, maybe you're getting some invites or your people are accepting your invites, you're putting a post out a day, which I don't agree with for anybody, like only put out posts when you have something to say, but that's not leading to the right connections, the right closed business down the road. You're spinning your wheels. So try to tie in results as much as you can too.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. Catherine here says, I have no notifications, not on the phone, not on the desktop, for Slack, LinkedIn, email, my network. And I don't either. I've turned off all of the sounds so that I could focus. But so you and I are like-minded on that, Catherine. I think, Jonathan, you mentioned on our, what was it? We did a LinkedIn Live on the social dilemma where we talked about that, right?
Yeah, I mean it's it's set up like a psychological casino, and it's to draw you in. If you haven't seen the flick, great place to get it from the horse's mouth. I mean, you got to figure out what's right for you. I don't mind a few of them because I also like it when people respond to me right away because I guess I'm hooked. But it can get overwhelming, and when I have things to focus on, like phone is flipped over, let's bang out this pitch deck so that it's not interrupted, and then you can always get back to it. Nobody needs a response right away.
No, and I agree with that. So we've just got a couple minutes left. The time has flown by.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Did you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to ask what do you think is next for micro communities out there?
Oh, you see, I saw Morgan Ingram do something really clever, right? So he moved his Muffins with Morgan to Twitch. And I'm not on Twitch, so I refuse to go over there. But he does an after the event thing over at Clubhouse. And that's kind of fun. So I think seeing how, when you're creating these events or experiences where you can leverage other platforms to sort of pick up that conversation, So I have and this is a perfect topic right now. I have a ladies' happy hour on Wednesday, January 27th, and I've got an amazing lineup of women, right? So I'm toying with the idea of right after the event, going to Clubhouse and having let's continue the conversation. Now it's an hour-long conversation. Why do we need to continue to talk? But after seeing the interest with that with Morgan, it makes me curious if that would, because I enjoyed that, and I never went to the Twitch thing because I've decided I'm not adding any more social media.
Right.
I'm
My folder's full. Yep. Yeah. Now
No
I would,
worries.
hey, I would test that out.
Yeah.
That sounds
So
like a
I'm
great
I'm
idea.
thinking about that, and of course I applied for a club
Nice.
in the clubhouse, which is like you have clubs in the clubhouse and the room. We can talk about it, that topic a whole nother day. But
Okay.
so I've been toying with that. But I've got. Thank you. We're right at time. So let me just say I've got that ladies happy hour, January 27th, right? And then next week I've got Ann Kramer. If you don't know Ann Kramer is a pick. We're gonna have so much fun. We're gonna be talking about how employee experience starts at first touch. And I think
Nice.
it's gonna be a great conversation. So hopefully everybody can join us. I'm not going to be in Clubhouse after this because I have like work to do. So that wasn't, like I'm not going there today until tonight, maybe. But thank you so much. And I'm going to just give you a little sneak peek of one of our previous ladies' happy hours so you could see what it's all about. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
First beginning now. And people say, if I would have known back then what I know now, no, like I had to hit rock bottom for so many reasons. I always say, like, if rock bottom had a basement, I found it. If I had to go through all of that shit to be able to come out on the other side and to look back and say, now I see why it all happened that way. Now I can connect the dots. This is why it happened this way. This was the ripple effect. And I'm stronger for it. And I'm a better mother. And I'm a better career professional. And I'm a better friend, better daughter, better coach, better whatever. Then that's my lesson. So all I can say is just to finish off, and then I promise I'll stop. School gives you the lesson before the test. Life gives you the test before the lesson. And I have no regrets for that.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
What a way